Hello. Hello, the hive. How is everyone today? Looking for Mary. When I see her, I'll bring her in. Hey, Sandra. Good to see you. Hey, Carla. See if I can find Mary. Is that Mary? I can't tell because she might have did something different with her. There we go. How is everyone doing? Where the heck's Mary? There she is. Here she is.
Hello. Let me move my giant seltzer water out of the way. Hi.
All right, dating. All right. How are you?
I am doing
Miss
awesome.
Colorado girl.
Right? Oh man, got to have some good time in the fresh air. It did me some good.
It looked wonderful. Your pictures looked amazing.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, it's funny because I wasn't even out there that long, but being from the ocean state and pretty much always being at sea level, being in the Rockies was definitely a big
Jersey
adventure, right?
Flat, yeah.
Right. So it was a wild and quick adventure, but I'm so excited to be back here with you all and delving back into this amazing story. And I gotta tell you, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's almost done. Like, what's gonna happen?
We are now, after we finish today, we're going to be past the halfway point of our endeavor here, Mary.
I can't even believe it. It's crazy.
I know.
Fast and furious.
I'm gonna miss it.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes. I know. And then it's back to school. I don't know how many of those of you watching, feel free to comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from.
Okay,
if people
just give me
inside
a second. I'll get that off.
Yeah, no worries. Let us know where you're tuning in from so we could say a little bit of a hello, of course. Let us know if you have loved ones going back to school. Maybe you yourself are a teacher, or you've got kids or grandkids or nieces or anybody who's going to be going back to school soon. But yeah, my kids start right on September 1st, which they love because they're big fans of the Harry Potter series. And September 1st is the day that Harry always gets on the Hogwarts Express. So we're pretty excited that they get to go back to school on September 1st. But yeah, then then all the fall craziness happens. But this is just such a fun summer thing. So we do have lots of our friends tuning in.
Okay, let me get myself on the same level thing with you. There we go.
Yeah, we've got Susan and Lynn. Hello, Diane. We got Janelle. How are you? Lori and Marsha. Ellen, Veronica, Mary, Phyllis tuning in also from New Jersey. We've got Susan in Oklahoma and another Susan from South Carolina. Carrie from New Jersey as well. Karen from Sweden. Hello, Karen. Great to have you. Diane from Waltham, Massachusetts, who's also a former teacher, so she gets the summertime end feel. Samantha, hello from the Hive, tuning in from Vancouver. She goes back to school. Kids go back to school the 7th. Carlotta from Philly, who's a retired teacher. Leanna from Illinois, no school stuff here, she says, but hopefully a new job starting at the same time. Well, best of luck. That's awesome. We got Stephanie from Colorado. Yay, Stephanie, let us know where we're in Colorado. Carla's a Flat Area, Michigan. Lisa from Michigan, too. Ooh, 2 Michigan girls in a row. We got Phyllis from New Jersey and Mary from Boston. Awesome. We've got a lot of fun people tuning in.
Oh, definitely. So hello, the Hive. Here we are, part 4. Our second to the last part for Space Between, and then we have 2 weeks of The Leaf on the Wind of All Hollow, and then we're done. But hopefully, maybe in the future, we still have versions to do eventually. And we want to do Past Prologue. That's another novella. So maybe down the road after Bees comes down and we're like a little bit, looking for something to do, we'll bring Mary back to do more novella stuff because she can do us
Awesome.
in spurts. She can't
Yes,
do our
yes.
big long novels, but she can come for spurts. So, and this has been a lot of fun. I know everybody has really enjoyed it, Mary. I hope it's
Hey,
been
me
fun for you too. I
too.
know it's a
Yes.
crazy time for you.
It's, life always likes to throw you curveballs, but this has definitely been such a high point of each
I'm
week.
glad.
So I'm
I
really,
want it
really,
to be for
yeah,
you. I didn't want it
it
to be a
is.
burden. I wanted it to be
No,
fun,
no, it is. It's so
and
nice, and I am. I'm really enjoying the story, and I'm really enjoying conversations with you, Angela, and I'm loving seeing
yeah,
everybody's
and everybody misses
comments.
you guys live, so it's nice to have you live here at least. You know what I mean? They get their
Yeah,
little
yeah,
flavor of Mary.
yeah.
Just so
Get a
everyone
different
knows, I
tone.
did do my Rita's run with my gift card from Carrie. Thank you, Carrie. And I am having today peaches, Georgia peaches and cream. I got
Ooh.
fancy flavor today.
I'm going fruit with my Trader Joe's sparkling water. It's pineapple. So we've got like
Ah,
fruit when it's not fruit, right?
definitely. Like this is what our one of our little rituals is. I tell them what kind of water ice I'm having that day.
I
But
love it. I
I was
love it.
excited because I usually get the cheapo produce market water ice that just has like 4 or 5 flavors.
Yeah.
And Carrie sent me a Rita's gift card, and so it was like, oh, I could get all the fancy schmancy flavors now.
Yay! I get to be
So
fancy. I love it. I love it. You've got your water ice and I've got my everlasting
it
seltzer
helps
water.
my throat to be able to do these long things, to have the water ice.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's jump on in. So hello, the Hive. We are the Beehive of Outlander Cast Book Club. My name is Angela Hickey. I am blog writer for Outlander Cast blog as well as the leader for the Beehive. And this is a reading club to prepare for bees. Originally, it kind of started that was what we kind of started at. Now it's kind of kept evolving and kept evolving, and now we're doing this with Mary, and I think we're planning to do bees like 6 months after bees comes out. So we have
Mm-hmm.
things on the fire.
Oh yeah. There's enough
Uh,
planned. Exactly.
yes, it started out just as like a little wee, hey, do you want to read Lord John with me? I'm going to start that in my prep for bees, and it's just kind of these things happen, Mary. They
Yes.
mushroom. Um,
Yes.
so this is the fourth part of our discussion of space between. We have 5 parts, and we're covering today pages 127 to 143 in the paperback book.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually 141 in the hardback book. I found out that because the paperback added in some of the pages,
Yes.
some of the material, it
Mm-hmm.
ended up making it not in sync with the hardback, because that some of that
Oh.
material got added in.
Yep.
So I found that out, and actually one of my feedback things today is going to be from Carlotta because she's working with the hardback, and so last
Oh.
week she actually read an extra section because she didn't realize where to stop. So her grade is actually in this section.
Oh,
So I figure I'm going to
perfect.
put hers in. Um,
Perfect.
so let's see. Basically, though, we're coming up to Michael leaving Chucky's house. That's
Mm-hmm.
where we're stopping today. Mary, do you have something that you want to?
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know me, hi, my name is Mary Larson. I am the founder of Outlander Cast, started off as a podcast, grew into an amazing community with a book club and blog writers. And of course, we have Angela leading the helm here with the Beehive. So this one section was crazy, crazy, crazy. If you missed any of the first 3 parts, where it just leads up and it just keeps getting more and more intense, you don't worry about it. Didn't fast. You can go on back and watch the previous videos either here in the Facebook Outlander Cast Clan Book Club, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, don't worry, we also have them on our Mary and Blake YouTube page. So incredibly happy to have you all here joining us tonight.
Mary, have you said anything to Blake about, wow, you should see this crazy story that we're reading for the thing? Have you told him, like, has he asked you, like, how is it, or how are you
Yeah,
liking the
he's asked me how
story,
it's
or?
going, and honestly, I haven't felt bad sharing bits about this with him because, of course, like he's this doesn't necessarily spoil
No,
anything.
that's why I
Like, you
was
know what I
trying
mean?
actually to talk him into doing this one because I thought he would have had a whole different take on the cop. You know how he was all poo-pooing, why do we need this
Yes.
guy and why do we need
Yes.
Mr. Emmett? So I thought it would be so great for him to see this, but it wasn't going to
Exactly.
happen.
Yeah. So, but he's hearing about
But
it.
I'm
Oh no.
curious.
And he's busy and everything. Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's been really fun. I mean, obviously the comp being alive and being in this story and having such a mystical kind of going ons with it, with
Uh-huh.
just these little sweet bumpkin Scottish folk who didn't necessarily sign up for the mythical arts or hearing voices. So yeah, I have definitely been filling him in, not necessarily chapter by chapter, but
Right.
when it first
And what
started
does
off
he
in
think?
he thinks it's wild. He thinks it's completely wild. And also he thinks it's pretty cool that this story is so short because Diana, being Diana, when she writes her novels, they take some time, which is great. And because we get to be immersed in the world. But for light summertime reading here in the book
Uh-huh.
club, this is perfect. So he
Mhm.
loved that I keep saying, like, I'm loving it, I'm enjoying it, it's fast and it's fun and it's wild and you get to be back in Paris, but in a totally different way. So he's loving my enthusiasm for it.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I was curious about that
Yeah,
because we
yeah.
haven't talked about that. Okay, so we're currently working through this long prep for bees, as I said, and we just started Moby. We're going to be covering chapters 14 through 18, 5 chapters this Saturday at
Mhm.
3 on the Outlander Cast Book Club. Once we get through these novellas, we'll go back into a normal sync. This is just while we're doing this. We're doing it like on these Saturdays regularly like this. Um, I also wanted to mention now every past event. Thank you to Carla who did a little project for me. I was like, I need help. Will someone help me, please? Because I was sick. And
Yes.
so she volunteered and she spent a couple hours to get all of our old, like way back Lord John lives, like
Mhm.
the links all found and put into the events
Oh,
of the past events. So now you can go to any past event we've done over the last year and a
Carla!
quarter. We've
Wow.
been doing this
Yay.
since like what,
Yes.
April or May or something of last
Yeah.
year. So all the way back to our first Lord John, which was, I'm sorry, I'm going to do one of Marion Blake's. I'm sorry for the early ones.
Yes. Yes. I know the
Where
drill.
I was just kind of feeling my way.
Yeah.
But you can go back now to any of them and just go right to the past event, and the live will be right in there in the event. So you can easily grab it and just kind of start
That is
thinking. And if you want to
awesome.
catch up on some old story or you want to pick up one of the Lord John stories we covered, you can kind of sync right in with what we're doing. So,
Yay.
um,
And
go
yeah,
ahead.
so this is all part of a 7-week series. So as Angela said, there's a lot going on in the future, and there's of course everything gearing up for bees. But this is actually 2 novellas between Echo and Moby. So next week we are going to be finishing this particular story that we're working on, and we're going to catch our breath a little bit, talk about any wags we have for bees, of course, from this. And Angela will take the last 10 minutes or so to introduce the next novella, A Leaf in the Wind of All Hallows. This content is available on the Mary and Blake YouTube. It's generally going to go up the day after that it airs, the Facebook Live. If you do find this on YouTube, we want to welcome you. Please, please, please come to the Facebook group so you can be joining in the live discussions. We would love for you to share this. So if you are available to share the YouTube links, please do that. And then mark your
Yes.
calendars because the Bees Party is on the 21st and it's going to be awesome. Oh my God, yes! Oh my gosh, there's gonna be so many fun things going on, right, Angela?
Yes, definitely. We have, I'm like securing away prizes, and we're going to have trivia, and we're going to have, I'm going to pull up a list of all these previous characters that we've seen that we haven't seen for a while, and like
Mm-hmm.
take a guess
Might be
whether they'll
sprinkled in.
appear.
Yep.
See who, everybody can kind of log in their guesses of who we might see and who we
I
won't,
love it.
and we'll see who gets the closest. Like I have all kinds of little things planned
I love
just
it.
for fun and to get us all ramped up because in 2 days we'll have the hot little thing in our hands. So
Yes.
it'll be very exciting time. And we'll have a special themed drink menu that we're going to tell everybody to plan. It'll be like bees knees and different things like that.
It's gonna be
So we
awesome.
have all kinds of little fun stuff planned. Mary is going to pop on for a little with us as well. And we'll have a shirt
Yes.
from Blake. So, and I've already asked him about that. He definitely agreed to do that. He said,
Yeah,
I would love to.
he
It's like,
does.
okay,
Yes,
great.
he loves that.
um, so I will hopefully, I have Blake I told him I'd like him to do a graphic. Like he's made these wonderful
Yeah.
graphics for this novella series, which I love. They look so much better than my little piece of crap things that I put together. So I asked him if he would do a graphic for me that could easily convert into a shirt.
Yes.
As soon as he gets that to me, I will have an event up, like even though it's far out, so that we can start plunking things in, drinks and ideas, and as I run these little contests for you guys to participate in, I can put them in there. So it'll be like this ongoing ramp up to that party once we get
Perfect.
the graphic. So
Yay.
that's going up. Um, just to reiterate the spoiler policy, I say this each time just in case new people pop in. While you're free to discuss anything in the big books or the Lord John books, or even another, even like, any of the other stories, do not spoil what's coming up in this book or the next novella that we're going to be covering with Mary, because she's reading it for the first time. There's about 12 or so people reading it for the first time. Um, and so we don't want, we want them to enjoy it and get all the revelations and everything. So just be
Yes.
aware of that. And also after this, I will be doing a short after buzz. We don't have a lot of Compton Raymond, so there's not a lot of real cool things to discuss. So I don't think this will go really long. Plus, I had an infusion and a vaccination on top of each other today, and I woke up with a very bad back pain. So I don't see myself having super stamina to be on super long after today, but I will come on a little bit. So we will do that. Anything else you want to announce, Mary?
Oh, just to remind everybody that Blake and I are covering The Last Kingdom, which is now airing on Netflix. So we're going to be coming out with our episode of The Last Kingdom pretty soon. I was away in Colorado, so we did to postpone things. But you can follow us at the Mary and Blake page. And then, of course, we have the Potterverse that is continuing on as well. So if either of those topics do interest you or interest your friends, feel free to follow the page and check that on out. So that's all I
We're
needed to
getting all
say.
kinds of suggestions for drinks and stuff down there. I love it on the board.
Yay! Oh, awesome.
Well, okay, so
Perfect.
let's open with some feedback, Mary, from the board. Now, I know this seems like a long time ago because we
I
skipped
know.
a week, and I appreciate everybody's patience with me. I've been going through a whole bout of stuff. But it'll be kind of nice to refresh ourselves on what we
I
talked about last week.
agree.
So we have some feedback. Mary, you start with yours.
Yeah. Yeah, Janelle wrote in, Janelle McKinney says she wonders if Galis had good parents or siblings. She feels that Galis must be on a whole other level of crazy to have sex with the Count. Like, what's the cause of her obsession with him?
What do you think? That's why I think
Um,
that she knew that he was
that
her
they're related.
ancestor. That she knew, like, this is her, where she got this powers and things, like this is her upline. So I just think it made her very
Yeah, because like,
obsessed
why
with.
would she just find him out? Because obviously there's other people who have these abilities to travel in time. So
Uh-huh.
maybe not as well documented as the comp. You know what I mean? Like, he obviously took really great work at documenting things and taking kind of the scientific more approach to everything. So maybe he's really just one of the more well documented ones. But I
Hmm.
agree. I feel like
He
it's
has a
more than
lot of
that.
like legend. This
Yeah.
Comp Saint Germain, like even if it must have been like, holy crap, he's my ancestor. Look at
Yes.
all the, like,
Yes.
he, you know what I'm saying? Like he had like this immortal presence, and
Yes.
he has like this legend. He's a real legend. So it
Mm-hmm.
must have been like totally like ringing her bell that this guy was her ancestor. If she found out, and
Yeah.
so she was just like, I'm having sex with Grandpa.
Yes. Well, she is. She's such like on a different level of crazy. We all think about,
Yes.
you do
I mean, she's probably thinking five
ancestry.com
times
or
grandpa, that's not
yeah.
like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not like, real incest.
Oh my
Not that
gosh.
she
Of
would
course, Galen.
care. Like,
No,
let's remember
exactly. That's
this
what I'm
girl.
saying. Galis would
Yeah,
not care.
she wouldn't.
Galis would
She
not care.
wouldn't. If it
Um,
advanced her cause, she wouldn't.
oh, exactly. She's all in as long as it profits for her. And then
Absolutely.
Tiffany wrote in, Tiffany Henschel said she wonders if the search for the comp's son by Percy and Moby looking for Fergus is primarily an excuse to get close to Claire. I mean, I feel like any excuse
Meaning,
to get
like,
close to Claire.
is she meaning, do you think that, that, um, that Percy's actually, I mean, Percy, the comp is actually behind,
Yeah.
what Percy's doing, and then like he's basically using this as a front to get close to Claire
It's funny because
on
like,
behalf of the comp.
I mean, like, now that I'm in here and now that I'm like realizing how maniacal and obsessed he is with Claire, I wouldn't put it past him, Like,
Right.
I feel like this is adding a whole new level to the
Oh,
Claire.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's absolutely like, it totally recontextualizes everything, as Draper always
Exactly.
likes to say. But I think, though, I don't think that he's working on the comp's behalf because this is happening while he's talking. Like, Percy has been in this period of time
Mm-hmm.
doing all of this conversing, and the comp is here now in this time
Yeah.
doesn't know crap about it. So I don't think that's
Okay.
connected at this point. Do you know what
Okay.
I'm saying?
I do. I
Like,
do.
he's
I'm
already
like,
appeared and like talked to Claire. He met her, saw her in Edinburgh. He saw her in the print shop in Echo. So like that's already been going
yes,
on, and this is
yes,
happening after that.
yes.
So I
Yeah.
don't think it was
Okay.
part.
Good point.
I don't think they're connected.
You're keeping
But
my
it's an
timeline
interesting
straight for me.
idea. It's an interesting idea. Like he's the puppet master behind
I
the
know.
thing.
That's why I'm saying. I'm like, can he split himself? Like, I wouldn't put anything past him at this point.
But
This
I don't
guy's,
think that it would be unheard of for him to appear in Bees after this book. Like knowing
yes.
that's happening, I can see him
Yeah.
possibly showing up. Go ahead.
I would be totally down with that. Susan Hurst also said that she gave some enlightenment on sexual magic. She says there is sexual magic in the pagan and Wicca religions. It magnifies some magical practices like ritual sex. So, okay. All right. All right.
Oh, now I could totally see Gayless thinking on
I'll
that
be into
track
it.
in that way.
Yeah.
Don't you think so? Like I could
Oh,
see
yeah.
her, thinking
Mm-hmm.
if I like sex is going to charge up something, you know what I mean? Like I could
Yeah.
totally see that,
Oh,
and like
yeah.
practicing sexual magic in that frame of mind, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I
Um,
completely agree. I mean, I didn't know this about pagan and Wicca religions that it is a thing, but it makes sense.
yes, yes, and I remember like
It
it was
is
a big part
powerful.
of when you would have Beltane celebrations. They would have like
Mm-hmm.
sex to consecrate the lands, and they would have all of this kind of stuff to in charge up the fertility of the
Of the
ground and all
land.
that kind of stuff. Like you christen your fields by having sex on the fields and stuff. You know, so
Any excuse. Let's be real. Let's be real.
that's
These young
right.
farmers were
That's
like,
right.
how about
I
now?
bet
How
you
about the
like
barn?
I bet you Jamie and Claire were totally down without that. Is like going out to christen their barley fields and stuff,
Oh,
right?
yes.
This will make some
They'll
good
make sure that
whiskey,
each
babe.
square foot, yeah, there's someone who, each square foot of their barley field will need to be christened when it's Jamie
Absolutely.
and Claire.
We got to make sure that whiskey has that extra special juice going
Yes.
on. Special fertilization.
This is what happens when it's
uh,
girl talk.
absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely. So I have a couple. I pulled out, like I said, this one because her grade actually references something in this section. So it's Carlotta. She said her good was Joan finding fulfillment in serving at the hospital. She also finds the courage to listen to her voices. And she tells the comp, don't do it, which was courageous for her to do that.
Yes.
Her bad is Leonie sexually ambushing Michael in bed. She says. And her great is that Michael cares about Joan and values her opinion. He says he wishes he could discuss the Leonie situation with her,
Yeah.
which actually happens in this section,
Yeah.
she was ahead. She said, I so much want them both to find love, preferably with each other.
Right there with you. Right there with you.
Yes. So what do you think?
Oh
They're
my
definitely
gosh.
where
I
they are.
mean, it's so funny because whether you meant to or not, in the beginning chapters, you were like, so what do you think of their relationship? What do you think's going on there? And I'm like, I don't know. She's hearing voices and like people are jumping off boats. I don't know what's going on. And now seeing it through these eyes, you can really kind of see the little tensions where we want them to be together and have a little
Yes,
happily ever after.
I do. I really do.
Yeah.
Um, and we talked a little in the after buzz about the ramifications if Madeline and the Comte are Gayless's ancestors. I had meant to bring this into our discussion here, and I forgot. But like talking about what that means. If
Okay.
if if the Comte and Madeline are Geillis' ancestors, then
Yeah.
that means that the Comte is Roger's ancestor.
Mhm.
Okay, that means like
Mhm.
all of these things. It also means that if the Comte is the father of Fergus, that means Roger is somehow connected and related to
Yes.
Fergus, through
Yes.
him,
Yep.
distantly, but
I'm
still,
totally here for it. Yeah.
So, so to that end, Lord Mahoney says, and we don't know yet how Claire is connected to the Beauchamps, but maybe Roger and Claire are related somehow.
Ooh.
Um, and then she adds, although it's so confusing, and I had some wine, so maybe I'm wrong. And I said, hey, Laura, I'm a firm believer in when in doubt, drink wine.
Amen. Amen. Right?
Right?
You're suddenly like, I'm on a different planet, but I'm making some correlations here.
Yes,
Maybe they'll fit.
if I can't totally figure it out, I'm gonna have a glass of wine, get some vino, makes
That's it. Hey,
everything clear.
if they all had a big family reunion, there would need to be a lot of wine if all those people, end up
Oh
being
my
related and
goodness
get
gracious.
together. That'd be a funny family weekend t-shirt design.
Yeah, it's all like interconnected, all
Yes.
interconnected. So last but not least, this one made me laugh out loud.
Okay. Okay.
So I wanted to end on this funny. Susan Barrett says, I don't see how Diana keeps all of this stuff straight in her head. She must be a genius. And then she adds, if Raymond is Claire's father, then it's kind of creepy that he put his hand up her hoo-ha to save her from childhood fever.
Ah,
He put his hand up her
I
hoo-ha.
mean, true.
I love
Life-saving,
it.
true.
Her hoo-ha. He put his hand up her hoo-ha. I totally fell out laughing when I
Oh
read
my
that. I was like,
God, that
okay, I
is
got to use this one.
awesome.
Okay, Mary.
It's perfect.
So
It's
before
perfect.
we discuss, how many honey pots do you give part 4?
I'm giving this a solid 5. I mean, giddy
Really?
up, here we are. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. There are parts that I was squeamish about and I didn't like because I was squeamish, but
Right.
um, I just feel like I'm sucked into like a Netflix murder mystery, and I'm trying to solve it and figure out how Joan's gonna escape or something. So I'm
Yeah.
totally sucked in, and this was the most painful pause to stop at. I just wanted to hurry up and finish it and see what happens out that window.
Oh, yes. It was. Yes, it was. Like it was very. I was very evil in making the stop there,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't I? Like, yeah. Then you made us wait 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Angela. I can see she's probably over there at her pool in Colorado, going, "Do I want to sneak ahead?"
No, I was
Were
good.
you?
I left the book at
You were
home.
tempted, weren't you?
I did leave it at home. I was very
Oh,
good. Yeah,
okay.
I did reread it. When I came back. So I was really fresh and everything. So yeah, I
Good,
was
good.
very good. But it was painful. But I know also that next week's the last bit. So I want to make sure that I've got all of the fresh enthusiasm and do my due diligence by sticking to the page numbers.
You're very good. You're very disciplined, and I'm very proud of you. I gave this part a 4.7. It's not bad or anything,
That's
but
the
some
lowest I
part,
think for
and
you.
I know, I know. It's it's just like wow. Um,
Yes.
it's not that it's bad or anything. It's some parts and insights I really loved, but it was lower for me in this particular section of reading focused heavily on Chucky and Leonie's
Yeah.
drama.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of over them both.
So
I'd
over.
rather would have had more like Joan and the Comte and Raymond and Michael,
Yes.
and like it was more about them dealing with the ancillary stuff of Leonie
Good
and
point. Yeah.
Chucky. And so
Yes.
I kind of I loved the Joan and Michael parts, the Mother H Hildegard part, the
Mm-hmm.
bit of interaction between the Comte and Joan and her POV telling what happened. I like that
Yep.
stuff, but the other stuff with these screwed up couple
Oh,
was meh for me.
yeah.
So, and there's
Yep.
no Master Raymond, there's no comp POV in this section. So it was more like a ramp up to the finale. So that's why I gave it a 4.7, which isn't a bad grade. It's just
No, no.
not like my tops.
Yeah.
So
Totally get
last
it.
week was more my tops, and next week will be my tops. So this is kind of like that little sandwich in the middle, the little
Yeah.
B, and not
Yeah.
that
You
bad,
need
but
you
you
need
know
to
what I mean.
have that. You need to have the lull before you have, the
The ramp up.
climax of the book. Exactly.
Yes. So good bad grade for this section, Mary. Let's hear
All right.
yours.
So my good was the ending, having Joan, be in this room, be able to look out the window that we already were, talking about the river before, and she's looking and there's Michael, hasn't that ever happened to everybody where it's like you could see the person that you need? Granted, you're usually not held hostage and trying to, save your life, but just that moment where it's like they're so close to each other and knowing where he is and how close
and it
she
was
is,
like hope.
Yes. Yes. So that's my good, is just kind of like leaving things off right there where it's like they're so close and yet they're not able to connect yet. My bad, same with you. It's like, I don't care about Leonie. I'm sorry. I'm just, I'm sorry that you made a really poor choice and then you continue to make really poor choices after that poor choice. But we spent way too much time with her. And when I read squeamish things, it's like it's hard for me in books sometimes. So I'm like, oh no, she's bleeding. So originally I thought that she had like slit her wrists or something like that, or had done,
Like Michael thought. Michael thought
yes.
the same thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, because it was from his point of view, I was like, oh dear, oh gosh, okay, what are we ready for? Luckily, it wasn't that gruesome, but I think because we were reading it from Michael's point of view and he was picturing like kind of this huge bloodbath, I was like nervously reading each sentence, like ready to like skip a sentence ahead. So it just kind of grossed me up, but I agree with you. Just too much time spent with them. And then my great was having the time where Joan tells Michael the truth. She just tells him everything and he takes it so beautifully. Like he's like,
I
okay.
love
And,
that.
is there
Yes.
anything else to it,
Yes.
without questioning her too much. And it's just, okay, well, what do they say? Like, what do these voices say? And you sit there and you're like, gosh, can we please clone more Michaels? Like,
Yes.
we need more of
Yes.
him in this
I need a
world.
Michael. Oh, I wanted to tell you this. Back in the first week or second week, one of the people, and I can't remember who it was now, said that they picture Michael like Bill Weasley. I don't think I've met Bill Weasley that much,
Oh,
but that's what they said. I don't know. What do you think, Mary? If that's
ooh,
what
okay,
you
yeah,
think?
the red hair and
I mean,
his
his
taller.
personality, is it similar to him? I really don't know him that well in those
I would,
books so far.
he's one of the more ancillary Weasleys. We don't get to spend too awfully much time with him. He and Charlie, we get a little bit less time
But
with,
is he more the
but
dignified one
he
or more like the
is.
together one?
Yeah,
Uh,
he's a bit more responsible, and he looks after his honey, and yeah, I can see that. Good job, whoever mentioned that.
I can't remember
Yes.
who it was. If you said that, like, let me know on the board because it was a
Yeah,
couple weeks ago, and now I don't remember who said it, but I
I
meant to
love
tell you.
that.
Um,
How
okay,
about
so
you? What
my
was
good,
yours?
bad, great is for good. I like Joan's dialogue in this section, both inner and outer. She has such a little funny, naive
Yeah.
type of perspective, especially
Mm-hmm.
with Diana's Audible, and
Mm-hmm.
how, like her imagination running wild, like thinking the furniture's going to come alive in the
Yes.
room, and
Like Beauty and the
and then her
Beast.
and her thinking, like, how like that when she was telling Michael, like how is he going to do it, and
Mm-hmm.
and then the way she was with the cow, and how she was kind of
Yes.
circling the cow, like she was going to, well, I'm going to take care of this now. This
Mm-hmm.
is like my world. I
I got
know
this.
I can
Yeah.
do cows.
You messed with the wrong
Yes,
tree nun.
I
Yeah.
don't give me French crap, but you give me a cow, I'll milk that bad
Yes.
boy.
Yes.
Um,
I love it.
so, and then my bad is Charles Papon. I just feel like he's a coward, a sucky friend, a crappy husband,
Mm-hmm.
an irresponsible lover. He's just
Yes.
terrible in every respect.
Yes.
And you just deserve a better friend, Michael. That's what I had to say. You deserve a better friend
Agreed.
than him.
Agreed.
And yes, my great was the subtle signs of Michael falling for Joan, because it's nothing like overt or even
No.
like consciously recognizable by him, but it's there
Mm-hmm.
and I love it and I'm here
Yes.
for it.
Yes.
And now they've been
Yes.
brought into each other's trust, which kind of deepens their connection, you know what I mean? Because they both
Mm-hmm.
entrusted each other with things they're not talking to anyone else about, which
Yes.
automatically kind of brings them together. So I
Mm-hmm.
like that. So let's break this down. We'll be tagging this chronologically again today, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So scene one, we open with this first scene with Michael mentally preparing to go see Leonie to confront her on this whole thing.
Yeah.
And we find out that he's been sleeping a little better because he exhausts himself each night before bed. And we get a clue on how he presents himself, like his look. And
Mm-hmm.
we find out like he's very Jamie like he wears his own hair, no powder, no wig, like he's very similar. You kind
Yes.
of get the vibe as he's looking in the mirror and seeing his look. It's kind of the way Jamie would look when he was in that wine business
Agreed.
doing his thing. Um, it's been 2 days since she came to his bed,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows he needs to see her, but he can't figure out what the hell he's going to say to her.
Yeah.
Um, and here is the first inkling of what I meant in my grate about um, about the undertoned pull that Michael feels subconsciously. Because at one point, like Carlotta said, he thinks that he wishes he could talk to Sister Jones
Yes.
about it. So you start to see that somewhere inside, somewhere way below his conscious grieving,
Mm-hmm.
he has this simmering draw and longing to connect with her.
Mm-hmm.
And Diana sprinkles like what I call fairy dust. These little cues are there, but not in this overt, hard to believe way. Because you
Yeah.
wouldn't believe, like, if he was just gung ho, I'm going for Joan,
I want the
when he's grieving,
nun. Yeah.
after he's grieving so much for Lily, you would be like, I'm not buying it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But this you can buy,
Mm-hmm.
And uh, we go through things tonight and next week, and then notice this is true for both of them in this very deep down way, and we'll point up some of these as we go, but it'll become important why when we get to the end. But here you start to see it. His issue is Leonie in
Yes.
his bed. And then what does he think? He thinks Joan and wishes he could talk to her about it. Like, why is he going to,
Yeah.
like, what possible benefit is there that she could do for you? What could she possibly say? She's this
Yes.
inexperienced virgin nun, never been in a relationship, completely naive. I mean, I just think that's a signal
Mm-hmm.
from his subconscious drawing him to her because
Yes.
she's not the person you go
No,
to have a
she's the last
conversation about this,
person.
but
No.
he wishes he could talk to her about it. Like that's who comes to
Yes.
his mind.
That's who
So
he
I think it's very
trusts.
telling. Don't you think so?
Oh my gosh, exactly. Like for all those mentions that all those points that you mentioned, the fact that it's inexperienced. You think maybe he'd be going to like a guy friend, obviously not Chucky, but someone who's either more experienced. Like this isn't something that you'd be like, oh, I can't wait to talk to a lady about this. Nonetheless, a lady who's trying to be a nun.
And a lady that's never been in has even been
No,
kissed. Like she's never
no,
been nothing, you know what I mean? Like you don't have a
yes,
clue about this, what you're gonna like wish
no,
you could talk to her. Oh, she was in my bed and started like grabbing my
fondling
cock
me.
and stroking me
Yes,
off and yeah, she could be
yes,
like, what?
yes. Oh my
I
gosh,
mean,
I
I just
love it.
thought it was hilarious. Anyway, um, so where am I here? Hold on 1 second. Oh my gosh, somehow I zipped all the way down here.
I got you.
Um, so as he approaches Leanie's house, he realizes something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the butler tells him that she's ill. Michael's alarmed and he smells blood and he
Yeah.
pushes past to speak to the aunt. And the aunt and then the doctor we see all act suspicious of him. They think he must be the father because of the way
Yeah.
he's, getting all freaked out. And he doesn't even understand that this is even happening now at this
No, no,
point.
yeah.
But they all kind of are giving him the evil, like the stink eye. You know what I mean? They're all
Mm-hmm.
giving him the
Mm-hmm.
stink eye, like,
Yeah, you're the one.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so Michael doesn't care. He's just like, whatever, dude. I
No.
want to see what's going on. And he assumes at first that she tried to kill herself, and he insists on seeing her. Now, why
Mm-hmm.
do you think he assumes that, Mary? What does he think it has to do with what happened to him? With him? Do you
I
think
thought it was
he thinks?
about just her grief. I like the way that I interpreted
Okay.
it is that it was her grief of missing her sister and trying to have like some kind of connection, just making a really bad choice because she's losing her sister, or maybe him not even knowing, like maybe she was lusting for me all along and then she tried to act on it. So I think,
And she's
when he
humiliated
walked in.
now.
Yeah, and she's humiliated, and exactly, she's just completely embarrassed that she tried to bed me, and she has this overwhelming grief of losing Lily.
And now she feels like, like somehow
There's
Lily is
nothing worth
now
here.
hating her. Yeah.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you thought it had to do with what she did with him, or if you think it's just her general grief or whatever.
I thought it
So
was her
Michael,
general grief, yeah.
okay, so Michael dashes up the stairs. He runs into the doc. He wants a report, and the doc is also giving him the suspicious
Yeah.
eye, and he says that she will live, but she's lost a lot of blood. And then
Mm-hmm.
he says he can't promise the child will live.
Mm-hmm.
she took a lot of this hellebore apparently, and it's
Yeah.
like, he can't promise for that. And Michael is just floored, He's like,
Child.
what?
Yeah.
Like, what are you saying to me
Yeah.
right
The
now?
record
And
scratch.
so he's like, yeah. And so now it's like she's pregnant and she tried to abort the child, and Michael's starting to now like put all the pieces together. He
Mm-hmm.
realizes why she felt familiar yet strange, because he could feel the early
Yes.
pregnancy. And so poor Michael, he's putting it all together and realizing what she tried to do. Can you imagine?
Yep.
Meanwhile, like, you
Oh,
have the girl in bad shape, so you can't like totally flip out on her.
yes.
But at the
Yes.
same time, you're like, I can't believe she effing did that. You know
Well,
what
the
I
way
mean?
that
You're
I
kind
took it when he like, when he excused her from his bed, and just said like, okay, we'll deal with this tomorrow. That's why I took it that he thought it was grief based. Like, wow, she's making bad choices because she's so sad. So here
right.
he is, almost like, he's so proper that he's gonna go and check up on her to go talk about this. He's gonna go say like, what was that all about? And then to find out that she had a baby, like that wasn't even on his radar.
Right. So here's our first clip. Um,
I need to talk to her now. The doctor opened his mouth in automatic protest, but then glanced thoughtfully over his shoulder. Well, you must be careful not to. But Michael was already inside the bedroom, standing by the bed. She was pale. They'd always been pale, Lily and Leonie, with a soft glow of cream and marble. This was the paleness of a frog's belly, of a rotting fish, blanched on the shore. Her eyes were ringed with black, sunk in her head. They rested on his face, flat, expressionless, as still as the ringless hands that lay limp on the coverlet. Who? He said quietly. Charles? Yes. Her voice was as dull as her eyes, and he wondered whether the doctor had drugged her. Was it his idea to try to foist the child off on me? Or yours? She did look away then, and her throat moved. Hiss.
mm,
The eyes came back to
what a
him.
turd he is.
Right? Oh, just give him to
Didn't want to,
give him to
Michel.
Michael.
Not that I find you disgusting. Not that. Merci, he muttered. But she went on, disregarding
Not that I
him.
find you disgusting.
Yeah.
You were Lily's husband.
Thanks.
I didn't envy her, she said frankly. But I envied what you had together. It couldn't be like that between you and me, and I didn't like betraying her. But her lips, already pale, compressed to invisibility. I didn't have much choice. He was obliged to admit that she hadn't. Charles couldn't marry her. He had a wife. Bearing an illegitimate child was not a fatal scandal in high court circles, but the Galantins were of the emerging bourgeoisie, where respectability counted for almost as much as money. Finding herself pregnant, she would have had two alternatives: find a complacent husband quickly, or... He tried not to see that one of her hands rested lightly across the slight swell of her stomach. The child. He wondered what he would have done had she come to him and told him the truth, asked him to marry her for the sake of the child. But she hadn't.
He
And he
probably would have
wasn't
married her.
asking
He
now.
would
Don't you
have.
think?
An
Yeah.
upstanding guy. I
It
totally
would be
agree.
best, or at least easiest, were she to lose the child. And she might yet. I couldn't wait, you see, she said, as though continuing a conversation. I would have tried to find someone else, but I thought she knew. She'd tell you as soon as she could manage to see you. So I had to, you see, before you found out. She? Who? Tell me what. The nun, Leonie said, and sighed deeply, as though losing interest. She saw me in the market and rushed up to me. She said she had to talk to you, that she had something important to tell you. I saw her look into my basket, though, and her face. Thought she must realize. Her eyelids were fluttering, whether from drugs or fatigue he couldn't tell. She smiled faintly, but not at him. She seemed to be looking at something a long way off. So funny, she murmured. Charles said it would solve everything, that the Count would pay him such a lot for her. It would solve everything. But how can you solve a beating? Michael jerked as though her words had stabbed him. What? Pay for whom? The nun? He grabbed her by the shoulders. Sister June, what do you mean pay for her? What did Charles tell you? She made a whiny sound of protest. Michael wanted to shake her hard enough to break her neck, but forced himself to withdraw his hand. She settled into the pillow like a bladder losing air, flattening under the bedclothes. Her eyes were closed, but he bent down, speaking directly into her ear. The Count, Leonie. What's his name? Tell me his name. A faint frown rippled the flesh of her brow, then passed. Saint Germain, she murmured, scared.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh my goodness gracious. A lot of the board I'm seeing also thinks he would have probably married her had she come to him with her issue and her problem, even for nothing else, for the sake of her sister, because,
yes, exactly.
to kind of like take care of his wife's sister, you know what I mean, for her benefit.
Like to do right by her.
But I'm kind of glad that he did it. Yeah, that she did it, because then he would have been stuck with this woman,
Yes, yes.
So Leonie was in a rush to end the pregnancy because she thought that Joe knew the truth when she looked in that basket, and that's what she wanted to see Michael so desperately for and talk to him about. She had it all about her, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So your thoughts,
which
Mary,
I feel like anyone, I feel like whenever you're like hiding something or fibbing about something, that is, you're on high alert and you're thinking everyone can see what I've done or knows what I'm doing, when really everyone's oblivious.
Paranoia. Yes, definitely. Do you have any more pity for Leonie after hearing her situation? Like, what other options do you think she had or that she should have done in her circumstance when in this time period where, she would have been completely ruined and, whatever, like what do you think she could have done instead or should have done instead?
Oh my goodness gracious. I mean, it's so hard because, I think of like Downton Abbey and how she was able to go and like have her baby in a different country and like have it, kind of adopted or fostered by another family. But Leonie's not necessarily of that wealth and caliber where she can just go off and, magically not have this baby. It would have been very difficult for her. So I mean, I would have loved for her to have told Michael the truth, because maybe he would have just married her, because I love Michael so much. I think that would have been a happy ending, but she also got herself into this mess. Look at what
young Ian did. Young Ian was ready to step up and do what it's like for the family. Like, this is how they're raised. You take care of your family. You know what I mean? So I don't like what she did, but I do feel sorry for her a little bit. I'm more pissed off I'm more pissed at him than her, even though I think she just made some bad choices, of course. But women in that situation at that time really had very few options. I mean, it's hard for us in today's day to understand what it is.
There's no like paternity test and go on to some talk show and be like, "You're the baby daddy and you owe me money." She's gonna do anything like that.
I think had she gone to him for help, he would have. But I'm glad it didn't go that way, in a way, because I wouldn't have wanted him locked in with her forever.
Because then, of course, she tells Charles the truth. Charles knows she's pregnant, and this is his idea, just pawning him off on Michael. Like, that's his.
And he's so grief-ridden. He'll just kind of not even know what he's doing, and then, this will get solved. Then he has his big solution. Now, this is my next question. What do you think about Charles telling her to do this to Michael? Like, what do you think of...
Charles is dead to me. I mean, I already didn't like Charles to begin with, but he is
literally
dead to
he
me.
is dead to you.
I know. Thank God. Thank goodness he is dead. I mean, but on the flip side, I wanted to be there for his death because I'm so mad at him for like
evil.
But listen,
evil.
Oh yeah. Here I am, like reading about like possible blood and then blood with Lanny, and I'm like, no, I would have rather that be Charles' blood. And granted, he is dead, but I'm sure
it was a bloody death too.
Yeah, but it's just, I wanted to be there for it. I think because, the men, especially at this time, like I said, they weren't saddled with it. They're not the pregnant ones. He didn't have to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's the thing. He knows he's not free to marry. You know what I mean? Like, you should have kept your hands and your other parts of your body to yourself.
Yes.
And stay away from this vulnerable young woman. You're not going to be able to take care of her, if something happens. You need to think about this. at the time. Especially, she's not like some hoe, you know what I mean?
No,
She's like, you know,
like friends in your
bourgeoisie or whatever
circle.
they, you know.
Yeah.
So, I'm not good French speaking, so I just excuse
Neither
my
am I.
butchering. But at least the one thing I can say positively for her is like she came clean with everything with him in this
Yes.
conversation. Like she was like, yes, this is what happened. This is why I did it. I feel terrible. Yes, it was Charles's idea. He thought this, and basically
Yeah.
like told him everything. She came like,
Yeah.
just, you know, said,
She was
what
on the
the hell
witness
now?
stand and just, yep.
You know, and so I think she was just too weak to care probably, you know, at
Yeah.
this point. And here was my question. How would getting money from the comp solve anything for Leonie? You know, at the end she says, he thought it would solve everything, you know. He would pay him so much for her. But how do you solve a baby or something like that? Like, how is getting money from the comp fixing her problem, solving
Well,
her problem?
that's what I was thinking. I was thinking of Downton Abbey.
Like,
Like maybe they
am I
could ship
missing
her off
something?
somewhere.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought that they could ship her off somewhere so she could like be in, I don't know, be in Italy for a year, you know. Oh, I'm gonna go travel because of my grief, but have your baby there.
Yeah,
Like
and then say
that's how
you
I thought
married
it.
there, he died, and
Hmm.
now I'm a woman of a widow.
Yeah, yeah. Or
You know,
you leave your baby and have it adopted. You
I
know,
just
that's
can't.
a
I just couldn't make the connection of what is him having money have to do with solving her problem of this situation, because it's not like she couldn't
that
pay
to
to
me
get this
was
abortion.
Charles's
It's not.
speech. Exactly.
Yeah,
Like exactly. Because when Leonie is like, you know, Leonie says the same thing essentially. You know what I mean? Like, how does this work with the baby? Like, it's probably just Charles being like, money fixes everything.
yeah.
No, it
Money,
doesn't.
money changes everything.
Yeah.
um, So you notice his immediate alarm though, hearing this news, you know, like
Hmm.
immediately, this is more alarm bells going off for him than anything else about hearing it.
Yes.
That like all the other stuff that happened, her trying to have this abortion, her laying there all half
Hmm.
dead, you know, the baby might,
Yep.
all the other stuff. As soon as he hears
Joan
Sister
and her.
Joan, they're gonna pay for her, blah blah. That
Hmm.
was when you saw him really go into panic
Hero
mode.
mode.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. You know, it was like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. What are we talking about?
Yeah. You messing with my
You
Joni?
know, yeah, you talk. What are you talking about? Say
Mm.
what? Say
Yes.
what? So scene two, alarm. Michael instantly goes to Rosenwald, the goldsmith guy,
Hmm.
and badgers him with the promise of extra money to get some reason to go to
Go
the
to, yeah.
convent. And he gets the engraving finished at once. He can barely contain himself to wait for it to be wrapped. He might like, this is
Yeah.
when you actually see Michael in like a zone of panic, you know,
Hmm.
which tells you a lot.
Yeah.
So he uses this as an excuse to gain entry to the convent. And after giving it as the gift, he's kind of like antsy pantsy, sitting there like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
And he asks to see Sister Gregory to give her a message from her family. And they're not happy, but you know, he's just giving them this, you
Yeah.
know, this
Nice present.
this
Yeah.
this stuff, you know, like how can they say no? So they allow it. And it's good that Michael has this excuse to bring the chalice, or else otherwise he would have
Exactly.
had no hope to speak to her, you know.
No.
So it was luckily that they had this. Um, so you see here, Michael seems to feel a great deal of responsibility and care for Joan here. What are
Yes.
your thoughts on Michael's panic? What does it
I
say to
love
you?
it. You know, to me, I was like, gosh, he's so wise and smart to know that rather than go right to the convent, he knows that he will not be able to speak to her without having this gift presented. You know, so even
Uh-huh.
though he has all this fear and panic and he wants to be the quick hero, running on over to the convent isn't going to make a big difference. But he knows,
Right.
even within all of this chaos in his brain, I need to go. I need to go get this chalice so I can actually have a reason to get in there, and it
Mm-hmm.
works. So
Yes.
I thought that was very just very wise of him. You know, he seems like
Mm-hmm.
even though he's in this panic mode, this, like you said, this is the first time we see him like that. Um, you know, he's just a really upstanding guy, but he also has a brilliant brain to make sure that he does the right thing, even in the time of trouble.
He reminds you a lot of Jamie, you know, so you're
Yes.
not really surprised about his protective nature, but you know, he feels responsible. Like
Yes.
she was under his protection.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that she's in danger. He's going to do anything he can to protect her. You know, it's
Yes.
just in their blood, you know.
Yep.
And I also think whether he admits it or not, he's beginning to like really care for her, you know, more
Exactly.
than
Yeah.
just this girl that he assisted to get here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So scene three. Now I love this scene, one of my favorites in this section, the big moment for Joan and Michael of trust and honesty, you know, where she's letting herself be vulnerable in this situation.
Yes.
And Michael turned and he sees her in her full habit thing, and he just kind of feels lost, which I kind of love the way it's described. He scarcely recognizes her in her nun's habit, and it's like this shock, and he almost feels like totally like he's flailing and seeing it, you know.
Yes, yes.
And then she looks at him and says, "It's me," and he looks at her face, and he lets out this deep breath and smiled, and it says, "As if she was lost and found," which I just loved, you know. I
Yes.
just loved, you know. So here's the first clip of this scene, and because this is one of my favorites in the section. Okay, why do I have all that stuff again?
Reassuringly. I mean, still me. His eyes fixed on her face, and he let out a deep breath and smiled, as if she'd been lost and he'd found her again.
Love that.
Aye, so it is, he said softly. I was afraid it was Sister Gregory. I mean, he made a sketchy, awkward gesture, indicating her grey robes and white postulant's veil. It's only clothes, she said, and put
so
her hand
cute.
to her chest, defensive.
Yeah, she is. I love her.
No,
Yeah.
said, looking her over carefully. I don't think it is quite. It's more like a soldier's uniform, no? You're doing your job when you wear it, and everybody sees it, kens what you are and knows what you do. Kens what I am? I suppose I should be pleased it doesn't show, she thought a little wildly. Well, I suppose. She fingered the rosary at her belt. She coughed. In a way, at least. You've got to tell him. It wasn't one of the voices, just the voice of her own conscience, but that was demanding enough. She could feel her heart beating so hard that she thought the bumping must show through the front of her habit. He smiled encouragingly at her. Leonie told me you wanted to see me. Michael, can I tell you something? She blurted. He seemed surprised. Well, of course you can, he said. Why ever not? Why ever not? She said, half under her breath. She glanced over his shoulder, but Sister Eustacia was on the far side of the room talking to a very young, frightened-looking French girl and her parents. Well, it's like this, she said in a determined voice. I hear voices. She stole a look at him, but he didn't appear shocked, not yet. In my head, I mean. Aye. He sounded cautious. What do they say then? She realized she was holding her breath and let a little of it out. Different things.
I hear Mary interesting.
But they now and then tell me something's going to happen. More often, they tell me I should say thus and so to someone. Thus and so, he repeated attentively, watching her face. What sort of thus and so? I wasn't expecting the Spanish Inquisition, she said a little testily. Does it matter?
Sass. I love it.
Twitched. Well, I didn't ken now, do I? He pointed out. It might give a clue as to who is talking to you, might it not? Or do you already know that? No, I don't, she admitted, and felt a sudden lessening of tension. I was worried a bit that it might be demons. But it doesn't really... Well, they didn't tell me wicked sorts of things, just more like when something's going to happen to a person. And sometimes it's no a good thing, but sometimes it is.
So what do you think so far here, Mary? I think Joan showed a lot of bravery and trust to be able to say this to Michael, you know? Gradually she explains about hearing voices, and while she and Michael are both keeping an eye on Sister Eustacia, who's comforting a new girl, Michael doesn't doubt her word and is of the opinion that knowing more about the content of the messages would help figure out where they're from. And she tells him about her past experiences, and Michael listens. So what do you think so far of her boldness to be able to talk to him about this.
You know, I think the word brave is perfect for her. You know, there have been
Mm-hmm.
moments in the earlier portions of this novella where I wouldn't necessarily use the word brave for Joan, even though she's traveling to, you know, try to go figure this out by herself, and she's doing all these things, but
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't think she's brave. I think that that's what it is. She doesn't believe in herself that she's brave. And really what also struck me was Michael just being so unjudgmental and just asking for more information. And
Mm-hmm.
because he's so calm with her, you know, she's even saying like, I wondered if it would be demons, like, and there's just no reaction. You're coming from like a Scottish Highland people, you know, who believe in these really scary, creepy things, and here's this woman just flat out saying I hear voices, and Michael's just like, tell me more, what did
Hmm.
they say? Okay.
Well, that was actually going to bring me to my. Now, I'm glad Jim felt comfortable enough to tell Michael about the voices, and he accepted immediately. Do
Mm-hmm.
you think it was because he was raised with the knowledge of people having the sight, like seeing Jenny see Claire's fetch at Jamie's marriage, or because maybe he likes and respects her enough to take her seriously? Were you surprised that he seems so accepting? And do you think the encounter that he just recently had with Claire
Yeah.
made him more open to, like, okay, I'm not going to get totally whacked, weirded out with this
Yes.
because I just went through this other crazy thing with Auntie Claire,
Exactly. Well, you know, he looks
like,
up to Uncle Jamie so much, and he looks up to the love that he and Claire had, and this whole crazy love story about her disappearing and coming back, and oh, by the way, there's going to be all this blood in the streets of Paris. Don't stay there too long. You know, all these things are happening. So I think, you know, he's at a point. Also, we have to remember he's still like in the shell shock of grief, so it's going to take a lot to kind of like jolt him out of it. So he's got
mm-hmm.
the adoration that he has for Joan, the protectiveness that he has for her too. Yes, I think some of that Highland culture, but I really think a lot of it's Jamie and Claire. I really do. Like, he admires
Yeah.
Jamie, he believes in Jamie, he looks up to him, and yet if Jamie can marry a woman and love this woman who does crazy things, then
And you
maybe
think people
that's
think
okay.
half the people think she's a witch, half the people think she's
Yes.
whatever. She's telling them stuff that's going to happen in
Fair.
France
Yes.
10 years from now. Like, at this
Yes.
point, sure, voices,
Okay. That's small. That's
easy
small. That's chump
peasy.
change. Yeah.
What
That's
kinds
chump
of things
change.
do they tell you?
Yeah.
Well, really.
Yeah.
Um, And so, and also, they have no shortage of nuns in this place. They got this other girl sitting there bawling her face
Everywhere.
off. So they can spare Joan, you know what I mean? Like, they
Yeah.
can spare Joan, give her back to Michael.
I mean, she's good with the
Um,
cows. They're going to need help with the cows. But aside from that,
I think she really needed someone to confide in. And now that
yeah.
she has that, I kind of think like that's part of what the convent gave her, was that
Ooh.
was one of the reasons that she was going and being in the convent, because she needed a safe place to fall, a place somebody she could
Yes.
trust. Now she's given some of that trust to Michael, and she doesn't
Makes me
have
think of
to.
hairdressers. You know, when you go into the hairdresser and they're washing your hair and you tell them your life story and you're like, and then this happened, and like, you
Yeah,
don't
they
even.
know everything, don't they? Them the bartenders, they
Yes.
know it all, you know.
Oh
But
my
I think
gosh.
like some of that need that she had to feel like a safe place to fall
Yes.
with this convent, she's finding in Michael, and it's like lessening
Yes.
her "I have to be here" feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
then we get this lovely bit that gives great insight to both of them, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Michael sees this new postulant crying and being a mess, and he wants insight on why she's becoming. And why are you
Yes.
doing this? Did the
Mm-hmm.
voices tell you to do this? No. Well, and she's like, well, yeah, you think they would have? And he kind of
Uh-huh.
smiles,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you would.
Yeah.
So I kind of really like this bit. I'm gonna play it because I just think it's one of my favorite parts. Um, I hate doing my audible clips on here. Here we go.
I see, he said slowly, and looked back at Joan. Is that why? Is it the voices told you to be
More
a
fairy
nun?
dust.
Yes. Yes.
He blinked, surprised by his apparent acceptance of what she'd told him, but more so by the question. Well, oh, they never did. You'd think they would have, wouldn't you? He smiled a little. Maybe so. He coughed, then looked up a little shyly.
See?
It's no my business.
Mm-hmm.
But what did make you want to be a nun? She hesitated, But why not? She'd already told him the hardest bit. Because of the voices. I thought maybe I wouldn't hear them in here. Or if I still did, maybe somebody, a priest maybe, could tell me what they were and what I should do about them. Sister Eustacia was comforting the new girl, half sunk on one knee to bring her big, homely, sweet face close to the girl's.
Oh.
Michael glanced at them, then back at Joan, one eyebrow raised. I'm guessing you haven't told anyone yet, he said. Did you reckon you'd practice on me first? Her own mouth twitched. Maybe.
Oh,
His eyes were dark, but had a sort of warmth to them,
little
as
guinea
if they
pig.
drew it from the heat of his hair. She looked down. Her hands were pleating the edge of her blouse, which had come untucked. It's not just that, though. He made the sort of noise in his throat that meant, aye then, go on. Why didn't French people do like that? She wondered. So much easier. But she pushed the thought aside. She'd made up her mind to tell him, and now was the time to do it. I told you, because that man, she blurted. The Count. He squinted at her. The Count Saint Germain. Well, I didn't ken his name now, do I? She snapped. But when I saw him, one of the voices pops out and says to me, tell him not to do it. Tell him he must not. It did. Aye, and it was very firm about it. I mean, they are usually. It's not just an opinion, take it or leave it. But this one truly meant it.
She's so cute.
She's so funny.
And urgency. She swallowed. And then, Monsieur Pipin. The first time I saw him, one of the voices said, tell him not to do it. Michael's thick red eyebrows drew together. Do you think it's the same thing they're not supposed to do? He sounded startled. Well, I don't know now, do I? She said, a little exasperated. The voices didn't say. But I saw that the man on the ship was going to die. And I didn't say anything because I couldn't think what to
Now,
say.
see, that probably holds some weight with him,
And then
you
he
know.
did die. And maybe he wouldn't have if I'd spoken. So I thought I'd best say something to someone. He thought about that for a moment, then nodded uncertainly. Aye. All right. I didn't care what to do about it either, to be honest. But I'll talk to them both, and I'll have that in my mind, so maybe I'll think of something. Do you want me to tell them don't do it? She grimaced and looked at Sister Eustacia. There wasn't much time. I already told the Count. Just maybe, if you think it might help. Now, her hand darted under her apron and she passed him the slip of paper fast. We're only allowed to write to our families twice a year, she said, lowering her voice. I wanted Ma'am to know I was all right. Could you see she gets that, please? And maybe tell her a bit yourself that I'm real unhappy. Tell her I'm happy, she repeated more firmly.
Oh,
Sister Eustacia was now standing by the door, emanating an
sound
intent
happy.
to come and tell him it was time for Michael to leave. I will, he said. He couldn't touch her, he knew that, so bowed instead, and bowed deeply to Sister Eustacia, who came toward them, looking benevolent. I'll come to Mass at the chapel on Sundays. How's that? He said rapidly. If I've a letter from your ma'am, or you have to speak to me, give me a wee roll of the eyes or something. I'll figure something out.
so I love this because you see them becoming a team. You know, you see them becoming a team, which is really what like endeared us to Jamie and Claire when we first like connected with them. You know, you could see this like teamwork kind of coming together where it was them against the world, and you kind of see that happening subtly here with Michael and Joan. I just love Michael and Joan.
Oh, I know.
So you know, it's a tremendous amount of trust from both of them. She also tells him about the comp and Chucky, and they make this system to communicate. You know, he decides he's going to come to Mass there all the time. And I think this trust goes a long way to begin healing and bonding both of them, you know. I don't think he consciously necessarily right now is attracted to her consciously since he's still in mourning for his wife, but I think there's something there under the surface. So your thoughts on this scene, Mary? Michael seems to doubt Joan's reasons for becoming a nun. Can he see something about her that doesn't fit with the religious life? And I wonder why
Yes.
Michael was not more alarmed when he heard that Joan had encountered him, encountered the comp, like when she said, I told the comp already, like after what had happened
Yeah.
with, shouldn't he have been a little bit like, wait, you've seen him, you've talked to him, like
That
after
was the tough
hearing this
thing for
other
me
thing.
in this scene, is that he
Hmm.
wasn't forthright with her that there should be a little bit of an alarm bell going off. Because had she
Yes,
known this, then maybe, I don't know, maybe she could have fought a little bit harder in the cow shed. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't know that the comp is bad news to her. And I feel
right.
like
That
Michael
he
could
had
have given
some
her a little
agenda.
foresight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't act on it right away. Like when he left
Mm-hmm.
there, he didn't like go find the guy, which he ends up beating himself up over later.
Yes.
But do you think that he kind of senses like she doesn't really belong here, like she doesn't belong doing this, because he's asking her, what made you decide, like, like he is
Yes.
kind of like wanting her to figure out, like, you don't really, this isn't
Yeah.
why you become a nun, because you want to figure out your voices. You know what I'm
Right?
saying? Like, you
It
need
made me
to,
think of like when friends get together and they meet someone's new boyfriend and they're like, so what do you like about him? Like, if you meet him and you're like, no, he's a real dud, like you can't say that. So it's like,
yeah.
so what did you find interesting about him that drew you guys together? What do you have in common? It's something like that. Why did you want to become a nun?
Janelle says she hopes that we hear news of them and bees, of their coupledom, that they become a couple.
Yes.
Um, so are you surprised that he wasn't alarmed when he heard that she had spoken to the comp? When she said, I
Yes.
already told the comp, don't you think like that should have
The
made him think, um, like she, knowing that he had designs on her, that she spoke to him, like, when did you see him?
Yeah,
Like,
like, buddy, where's your
stop.
high
I
alert?
guess
The only
he couldn't say too much because the gnome was coming back. And so it was
Yeah.
like he had to cut himself off. But then I think if I were Michael, I would have left the nuns and I would have
Mm-hmm.
like started,
Gone to the comp.
going over to, find the comp, go over to his
Exactly.
friend, go to Chucky's house.
Yeah.
But
The
instead
only
he
other
kind of
thing
went
that I
back.
thought is that like she already interacted with him and nothing bad happened. He didn't take her then. So maybe he thought like,
Mm,
oh, she already saw him and nothing happened. But exactly,
yeah.
I think it was the pressure because, they mentioned so frequently that it kept looking over to see the different nuns and how much longer they were going to be spending with the new girl.
Right.
So but that was the hard thing for me in this conversation is I'm thinking, okay, you're like Jamie, except Jamie would have taken this a little step further. Jamie with his
Yeah.
protectiveness might have said a little something right here.
Um, so, and I think he's still checking on her once in his life by saying he's going to be there at Mass
Yes,
on Sundays.
Mass.
Um, uh, it's maybe still a friend thing, but I think it's beyond what friendship requires, that he's going all of
Yeah.
these extra steps. And she's in it, I mean, she's at the convent. She's safely delivered. He did his job, but he's
Mm-hmm.
still staying very involved in her life,
Yes. I love it.
And I think he wants to see, but hasn't gotten to the point of recognizing his feelings in that way yet,
Yeah.
but all his actions are saying a different story. So now we go to scene 4. We have Sister Joan. She's been put on cowshed and milking duty as a punishment for her behavior in the market. Like she did some horrible thing. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but she doesn't really mind because she's used to cows. Like this is her
Yeah.
forte.
I love
Like
it.
she's like, a cow's a cow. Even if it's a French-speaking wee besom, it's a cow. I
Yes.
can do
She can
cows.
wrangle it. Yep.
Yeah. And so it was a problem cow, but she's got this. So
Mm-hmm.
she goes to into the lane. She picks up these fresh grasses and daisies, and and I love how she walks around the cow and looking
Uh-huh.
at it, checking it
Size
out.
her
Like,
up. Yeah.
yeah, like I'm gonna, like, this is now my world. I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing here. I really kind of love that. It was like the
Yes.
one
I'm gonna
thing she
show
could
you who's
grasp, but she
boss.
knows what the hell she's doing. And so she's like, okay, I know what to do here. So she goes and she gets all these like
Yeah.
special things, and the cow's like munching away. She milks the cow, and she's contemplating the voices, and wants to know, wonders um if Michael had like done anything with this information yet. What
Mm-hmm.
happened with it? Her
Mm-hmm.
mind goes to this as she's milking.
Yes.
And I love how she's so resourceful in her realm of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
You see her like just automatically have this upswing of confidence You know what I mean? Which he's
Yes.
in her realm, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope she gets credit somewhere for managing this cow that no one else could handle, you know.
Honestly,
She's like
yes.
the cow whisperer.
Yep.
um, so I love Joan's confrontation with the cow. It's another example of her spirit and her ability
Mm-hmm.
to get down to business and get things done. So how did you like that? It was like this little cute scene, but I kind of like that part of it. Did
Yeah,
you?
I think it showed us, because we've only been with Joan where she's foreign, whether it's the language, the culture, being in
And
the convent.
nervous and feeling out of
Yes.
her element. Yeah.
In the big house, like she's always felt out of her element until now.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was fitting that this happened after she was able to share her truth. She's able
Uh-huh.
to be her. And so
Yes.
I liked the placement of it in this story.
That's excellent. I like that. And so she wonders if they've talked and what happened. And as she's thinking all this, the cow gets restless. And Joan stands up and moves the bucket away. And then she sees the man in the dove gray coat,
Mm-hmm.
the comp, standing
Mm-hmm.
in the doorway. And he smiles and bows and says to her that he must ask her to come with him. So what did you think when you saw this, Mary?
Oh. I shook my fist at Michael Murray. Why didn't you tell her? Oh
I
my
don't think she
God.
like went and said, "Oh, okay, I'll be right with you." You know, I don't think
Yeah.
she went willingly,
No,
but
no, and
yeah,
obviously find that
definitely.
out, but it's like that's when I'm shaking. That's when I was mad because I'm like, Michael could have told her, like, be wary,
Yeah,
you
just
know?
when you see that guy, go the other way. Um, so scene six, Mother and Michael and Mother Hildegard. I love this scene with Michael and Mother Hildegard. When he arrives, Michael fears that Mother Hildegard might be too frail to handle the situation, and we
Yes.
figured it out on one of the threads in the book club. Mother Hildegard is like 98 years old here, 96 or 90, something like that, like 97, 98 years
And
old. We
still up and
figured it out.
about and like helping people.
So she
Wow.
is pretty
Wow.
freaking ancient. You know what I mean? Like at
Yes.
this point.
Yes.
Um, and he figures she's too frail to handle this situation. He thinks the breath is going to knock her over. And he
Mm-hmm.
asks her if possibly Sister Gregory left on her own accord. Oh, you know what? I skipped the part with Jared. How come I don't have that? Wait a minute, I skipped. Never mind, I skipped. Hold on, I
Okay.
zipped when I and then backtracked. Zip, zip, zip. Scene five.
It's
I skipped
okay.
the whole thing.
Look at me. I'm like, we're so
Okay,
into
so
the cow and
yes, I love this scene with Michael in the warehouse and Jared. He comes in looking all disturbed, and Michael asks what's wrong, and Jared says, I'm gonna just because it's a little short thing, so I didn't make a thing out of it. Um,
I get bored with Jared. Is that a problem? I think he just has like in my mind, a monotone voice. He's wise. He's been here for a while.
okay.
I need to get some more Jared love, but I'm like, I
He
don't know.
says, he says, Michael says, what is it? Like you could see
Hmm.
he was disturbed, and he says, you haven't got that wee nun in your bed, have you, Michael? And he said, lifting a brow at him, and he's like, have I what? And he said, I had just got a message from Mother Superior of the convent saying that one Sister Gregory appears to have been abducted from their cowshed and wanting to know whether you might possibly have had anything to do with the matter. And Michael just stared at his cousin, unable to take this in.
Yeah,
Abducted? Who would be kidnapping a nun? What for?
yeah.
And so he says, well, there you have me.
Hmm.
So, but I think you better go find out. So then he gives him his coat and he leaves.
Yeah.
And so I love this exchange, and I'll tell you why. Well, first of all, what did you think of Jared going right to, do you have her tucked up in your bed?
So
Do you
this was the
think
first
Jared
time.
senses something between them? That there's a little,
Yes.
that Michael feels something for her, but he's
Yes.
not admitting it yet.
I think back when they were talking about the send off, and I think that's when I was like, oh, Jared, like I love that Michael has family here in France, and I love that he's able to, like have these connections, be able to talk about other people. But that's just the Jared that I made in my mind, I guess. I
Right.
do love that he said that right away, because exactly when he was talking to Michael about the send off, he knows his job was just to bring Joan over and pop her in the convent, not to,
Right.
booze a lot, and so I don't know. I think that Jared's able to pick up on things that we haven't even necessarily read. Maybe Michael kind of
Like,
glows when
remember,
he talks
Jared is
about
all
her.
about mistress life. He's had
Yes.
mistresses all his life, and he's
Yes.
named his ships after his mistresses. Remember this,
Yeah.
So I kind of love this little tiny exchange, and I'll tell you why. Let's not forget who Jared is, okay? He's the nephew of Lord Lovett. He is
Yes.
the nephew of the old fox.
Yes. Okay, yes.
And so he's a half brother to Brian. A cousin to Brian. And while he's somewhat joking in saying that, there's a shred of seriousness because his own uncle, Michael's great grandsire, routinely did this kind of stuff, abducted women and kept them beside, put them up in their beds,
Oh
this
my
is
gosh,
kind of a
yes.
normal thing
Okay.
that he grew up around,
Oh my
seeing his
gosh.
uncle do all the time, for his own benefit. And it's not kind of an unheard of thing to him. Only when Michael says, why? What for? What purpose would anybody have to abduct a nun? Jared was at a loss. He's like, well, there you have me, because he can't see how it would be advantageous to anybody to do such a thing, because he's thinking like the old fox, where there's always an angle, there's something in it for you, but what's in it for you except, to deflower a nun, you know what I mean? There's nothing else to it, you're not going to make any money, out of it. So there would be no need to gain to it. So it's like you can kind of think like he's thinking like blood will out. He's recognizing that.
This is
So
helping me a little bit more with context, Angela. I needed this extra context because I was like, what is he doing? Like, why is he? Okay. Thank you for like.
So I kind of like you don't have that nun tucked up in your bed, and he raised like a little beetle brow at him, like, you didn't do that, did you? Because he's just like, he's seen it all. Jared's seen it all, And let's remember too, Jared's lived his life, this wealthy playboy bachelor. He's never married, always kept a mistress. Like I said, he names his ships after his mistresses.
The most interesting man in the world. You know those commercials? I forget what alcohol he has, but it's like, the most interesting man in the world.
Oh, yeah,
like, that's what I picture him as.
I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, but that's how I picture Jared. Just like, I get to be kind of like stoic and monotone, but I'm like fancy and I can, woo anybody.
And I think he's because he's been around like sex and mistresses and picking up attractions. I think he can pick up things and just kind of like, like he picks up one Claire. I'm not going to say that Claire couldn't do it if she tried. And she had very decided opinions. He observes everything. And that's why he's been successful.
Exactly.
He's been a successful businessman for that reason. So Michael's like totally flabbergasted that Joan is like, can you imagine what's Michael's like the alarm that he's feeling right now? He's seriously alarmed.
Yes.
And he can't even grasp that this even happened. And he just saw her yesterday. So Jared hands him his coat, tells him to talk to Mother, Hildegard at the convent. Do you think he should have been this shocked after what Leonie told him? He should have been, I think, a little more, I guess, tuned in that something like this could happen. He acts like, whoa, like, how is this happening? When,
where have you been,
just
Michael?
said, she was going to pay me for her,
Yes.
So
and maybe it's just more obvious to us because we've been with the cops. Half of this time we've been reading it from his maniacal
he doesn't really
point
even
of
know
view.
him yet.
No.
Yeah, he doesn't even know him.
But if you heard someone was going to pay for someone, it's like, shouldn't that be an alarm bell?
It should be shocking to you that she was abducted. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So now we get the scene that I was saying. So I love this scene with them. He thinks a breath would knock her over, and he asks if she might have left on her own free will. And she gives him this withering look that like makes him go, oh, okay, maybe she's a little more competent than I thought.
Yes.
And she's just no joke. Mother Hildegard is no joke, And she's still very sharp for her age. She's still a force to be reckoned with. So this scene is our next clip. I love the signs also that Joan put up a fight. You know, you kind of get that sense in this clip that she put up a fight. So I like that. She didn't just go like a little meekly thing. Okay. Hold on. Sorry.
It's okay. Juggling multiple streams of technology.
We did, she said dryly. It happens. However, she raised the stick-like finger. 1.
Leanna gives
There
him
were
a
signs
pass.
of a considerable struggle in
I
the
see on the
cowshed.
board. Yeah.
A full bucket of milk, not merely spilt, but apparently thrown at something. The manger overturned, the door left open, and 2 of the cows escaped into the herb garden. Another finger. 2. Had Sister Gregory experienced doubt regarding her vocation, she was quite free to leave the convent after speaking with me, and she knew that. 1 more finger, and the old nun's black eyes bored into his. And 3. Had she felt it necessary to leave suddenly and without informing us, where would she go? To you, Monsieur Murray. She knows no one else in Paris, does she? Well, not really. He was flustered, almost stammering. Confusion and a burgeoning alarm for Joan, making it difficult to think.
It's about time. Burgeoning alarm.
But you have not seen her since you brought us the chalice and baton. And I thank you and your cousin with the deepest sentiments of gratitude, monsieur. Which would be yesterday afternoon. No. He shook his head, trying to clear it. No, much. Mother Hildegard nodded, her lips nearly invisible, pressed together amid the lines of her face. Did she say anything to you on that occasion? Anything that might assist us in discovering her? Well, Jesus, should he tell her what Joan had said about the voices she heard? It couldn't have anything to do with this, surely, and it was their secret to share. On the other hand, Joan had said she meant to tell Mother Hildegard about them. You'd better tell me, my son. The Reverend Mother's voice was somewhere between resignation and command. I see she told you something. Well, she did then, Mother, he said, rubbing a hand over his face in distraction. But I can't see how it has anything to do. She hears voices, he blurted, seeing Mother Hildegard's eyes narrow dangerously.
Just here we go.
Went round. She what? Voices, he said helplessly. They come and say things to her. She thinks maybe they're angels, but she doesn't know. And she can see when folk are going to die. Sometimes, he added
Not a good
dubiously,
secret keeper.
I don't know whether she can always say. By the sacred blood of Jesus Christ, the old nun said, sitting up straight as an oak sapling. Why did she not? Well, never mind about that. Does anyone else know this? He shook his head. She was afraid to tell anyone. That's why, well, one reason why she came to the convent. She thought you might believe her. I might, Mother Hildegard said dryly. She shook her head.
Mother Hildegard's
rapidly,
seen a lot in her
making her veil
98
flash.
She
years.
sure has.
Oh, the dear. Why did her mother not tell me this? Her mother? Michael said stupidly. Yes, she brought me a letter from her mother. Very kind, asking after my health and recommending Joan to me, but surely her mother would have known. I don't think she... Wait. He remembered Joan fishing out the carefully folded note from her pocket. The letter she brought. It was from Claire Freezer. That's the one you mean. Of course. He took a deep breath, a dozen disconnected pieces falling suddenly into a pattern. He cleared his throat and raised a tentative finger. 1, Mother. Claire Freezer is the wife of Joan's stepfather, but she's not Joan's mother. The sharp black eyes blinked once. And 2, my cousin Jared tells me that Claire Freezer was known as a white lady when she lived in Paris many years ago. Mother Hildegard clicked her tongue angrily.
She didn't like that.
No such thing.
No. Don't talk that way about my friend.
Don't be trashing Claire.
Yeah,
Rumor
yeah.
to that effect, she admitted grudgingly. She drummed her fingers on the desk. They were knobbed with age, but surprisingly nimble. And he remembered that Mother Hildegard was a musician. Mother, yes? I don't know if it has anything to do... Do you know of a man called the Count Saint-Germain? The old nun was already the colour of parchment. At this she went white as bone, and her fingers gripped the edge of the desk. I do, she said. Tell me, and quickly. What has he to do with Sister Gregory?
So your reaction and thoughts on this scene, Mary, what did you think of Mother Hildegard's reaction to the voices? She seemed to take it very in stride.
Oh yeah.
To the comp, I mean, she was shocked, but she didn't like act like she's nuts or anything. To the
No.
comp, the word of hearing the comp's name, she seemed to go into serious alarm over that. What do
Yes.
you take of this interaction that he had with Mother Hildegard?
Well, first and
Any
foremost, I
thoughts?
feel like I should tell people that I hear voices, because if everyone's as chill as Michael and Mother Hildegard, like, what are we doing here? Oh, okay, all right, I can see that. All right, yeah. Like, what are we doing? But then exactly, for her to have that reaction to the comp, it makes you wonder, what has she heard? I mean, she's been around for so long. What has she seen or known about? You know what I mean? So once again, she's a wise, wonderful woman who has her nimble fingers and everything. I do find it interesting how many times it is we're reminded as the reader that she is a musician. So I don't know if that's something that's going to happen in the last bit. As you know, Joan even talks about, oh yeah, we're going to learn music, and Mother Hildegard was a famous musician, and now Michael's even talking about our nimble fingers, thinking about that way. So that's something also that stood out to me in this passage. Granted, I'm a musician, so I like hyper pick up on those things.
Yes, you do. Yeah. I think it also confirms that Claire did not explain the relationship between her and Joan in the letter well,
Not at all.
And so why do you think that here's another question. Why do you think Michael thinks it's relevant to Joan's disappearance to mention that Claire was known as a white lady when she was in Paris many years ago? Like, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, why bring that up like it's a point? You know what I mean?
I think just because Mother Hildegard was one of the few people that Claire was close with in France, and he knows that they had that relationship. So maybe to say, like, all right, I knew about this crazy, weird stuff. I think just because he did come clean about Joan hearing the voices. So he said, all right, Auntie Claire had some magical weird stuff going on, and this is what she was known as, and Joan has this. So I don't know if,
or maybe he
that's
thinks that she would like think that this might draw people to her, that if other people mistook her as her daughter like you are, you know what I mean? People think of her as this La Dame Blanche.
Exactly.
If other people think she's your daughter, people might connect that.
Draw the same
assumptions. Draw that conclusion, yes. So maybe that's why he brought it up, because it seems odd to me, like, okay, what does that have to do with this?
Yeah. But on the flip side, I think he's so flustered too. And as I said, I loved how he was just like, oh, I just learned these deep, dark secrets from Joan. Let me tell you everything about them. But on the flip side, when you get to this point where someone is abducted, you do need to just put all the cards on the table. It doesn't matter that Joan told you this kind of stuff in secret,
Yes.
And she did say that she wanted
I've been
to
in
tell
a
more
position
people.
like that where I was sworn to secrecy with a friend, but then the friend was missing. And she kind of went off with this guy. This is back when I was younger, and the mother. I had police coming to my door, and like I had sworn that I wouldn't tell anybody. But then I was in this catch-22 because what if this guy did something to her?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I kind of was very torn at first. Like, do I keep my word to my friend, because I'm very good about that. If I swear to somebody, I won't say anything. I won't say it.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, like, my fear for my friend is like, what if something happened to her? So I can understand like the little bit of conflict, you know what I mean? When you gave your word just yesterday to this girl.
Yes.
So I said, as far as the white lady, I said he might feel that she should know about the strangeness of his family, that she was called this white lady, maybe to solve the puzzle of who abducted Joan. Maybe someone else is interested in that.
Yeah.
Whatever. So that's what I answered that question. So now we get to scene 7, Joan abducted, and we open this scene with Joan locked in this giant room. It sounds like they totally like knocked out the entire upper floor of the room, and it's this giant room at the top of this house. And Joan's like gives the door a kick. It's very solid. She's a bit freaked out, and her imagination and nerves are like in high gear, because as he left, he told her he was a sorcerer. So now she's like looking at everything, thinking everything looks strange. Looks like there's claws on the bottom of the furniture, She's looking at all these bottles and all of his little sorcerer beakers and everything else lined up, and thinking, what the hell?
Yeah, it made me so much think of Beauty and the Beast. Have you ever seen the stage production of Beauty and the Beast?
Mm-mm.
So,
Only
just
the
regular
movie.
Beauty. Yeah, regular Beauty and the Beast, the furniture all comes alive and they can talk and
Right.
everything. And in a stage production, Belle spends a little bit more time inside that room, singing like, "Is this my home?" or whatever. And then slowly the pieces start to come to life. And that's all I kept picturing inside this chapter, with Joan just describing how she thinks that things are going to come to life. It's like, it's going to
And
be
she's like,
Beauty
"Is
and the
the bars
Beast.
on the windows to keep the furniture in?"
Yes.
She's
Yes.
like all freaking out. Then she sees the bed, and the bed's covered with these pillows, and she's thinking like, what does he have in his head, that he's going to be
Yes.
doing on this bed,
Yeah.
and she's thinking, does he bring all these women up here to like do stuff with them? And she's
Yes.
like talking about the smells, like everything is freaking her out. I mean,
Yeah. Rightly so.
understandably, she must,
Exactly.
yeah, I would be freaked out if I was her, and I've been
Yeah.
around,
Yep.
So she's definitely gonna be freaked out. And the comp had warned her he was a sorcerer, not to touch anything. And she sees the scary clawed feet of the furniture. She thinks they're gonna start, she's petrified.
Yeah.
And she can see the river from her window. And Michael comes to her mind, but the glass is covered and bars on the inside, and she wonders what the comp is trying to keep out. And she sits on a stool and she starts to pray, trying to get a grip on herself, And before we get to this next clip, what did you make of her observations of the room? Like you already kind of said that.
Yeah.
Like
all I
she
could
must be
picture
so
was Belle.
scared.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was picturing that, but
And
also what a wild imagination. But yet you have to remember, this woman hears voices. And she just came from this like simpleton area, not necessarily simpleton in the sense that they were dumb, but just like a simple life. But they had their imaginations. They had all the fairies and everything, So for her to sit there and say, this is a sorcerer, maybe she'd heard about sorcerers and stories. You know what I mean? You think
yes.
about all the stories that Jamie would tell her. So for her for her just to have heard about sorcerers, possibly from folklore or stories, they could probably do things like that, like have furniture that can come and attack you. So it doesn't blow my mind that she was thinking that.
When you're from Scotland, you grew up with myth and legends and
Yes.
silkies that come to the seals that
Yes.
come on land and turn to men, and
Yes.
all of this kind of craziness. You know what I mean? Is normal. Normal
Yes,
belief.
exactly.
So it's like for
And she hears
her,
voices, so she's just like, whatever. Of course, there's sorcerers. Maybe the
and
furniture comes
of course stuff
alive.
does come to life. Yeah, I mean he's a sorcerer.
Yep.
So before we get to this, okay, I already did that. Okay, so she reflects that the comp has not exactly harmed her, and she recounts the story for us of what happened when he took her from the cow shed. So that's what I want to play, because it's like our only little window of the comp in this entire thing. And so let me get to that. This one.
And after a further bit, began to be able to think again, shuddering only occasionally. He hadn't threatened her, nor had he hurt her, really. Just put a hand over her mouth and his other arm around her body and pulled her along, then boosted her into his coach with a shockingly familiar hand under her bottom, though it hadn't been done with any sense that he was wanting to interfere with her. In the coach, he'd introduced himself, apologized briefly for the inconvenience. Inconvenience? Cheeky! And then had grasped her hands in his, staring intently into her face as he clasped them tighter and tighter. He'd raised her hands to his face, so close she thought he meant to smell them or kiss them, but then had let go, his brow deeply furrowed. He'd ignored all her questions and her insistence upon being returned to the comp. In fact, he almost seemed to forget she was there, leaving her huddled in the corner of the seat, while he thought intently about something, lips pursing in and out.
So now I have to switch to the book, because that the Audible
doesn't cover this bit.
Yes. So it says she thought of jumping out and almost got her nerve up to reach for the handle. Though the coach was rattling at such a pace, she was almost sure to be killed, but then his eyes fastened on her again, pinning her to the seat as though he stabbed her through the chest with a knitting needle.
Oof.
The frog, he said, intent. You know the frog, don't you? Any number of them, she said, thinking that if he was mad, she'd best humor him. Green ones mostly.
Yep.
His nostrils flared in sudden anger, and she shrunk back into the seat. But then he had snorted and relapsed into a sort of brooding stare. emerging from this only to say, the rats didn't all die, in a sort of accusing tone as though it was her fault. Her mouth was so dry she could barely speak, but had managed to say, "Oh, did you try ratsbane then?" But she'd spoken in English, too rattled to summon any French, and he didn't seem to take any note. And then he had lugged her up here and told her briefly that she wouldn't be hurt, added the bit about being a sorcerer in a very offhand way, and locked her in.
The end.
She was terrified and indignant, too, but now that she calmed down a wee bit, she thought she wasn't really afraid of him, and that seemed odd. Surely she should be. But she believed him when he said he meant her no harm. He hadn't threatened her or tried to frighten her, but if that was true, what did he want of her? He likely wants to know what you meant by rushing up to him in the market and telling him not to do it, her common sense, lamentably absent to this point, remarked. I love this. Oh, she said aloud, that made some sense. Naturally, he'd be curious about that. But if so, why hadn't he asked her instead of dragging her off? And what had he gone off to do now? He had something in mind, and she didn't want to think what. So, thoughts on her interaction with the comp after he took her, Mary?
I mean,
he was like staring, looking for that blue light in her hand.
Yes. You know, and here she is, just looking at him. Once again, the bravery of Joan stood out to me here because she is obviously frightened. We're talking about how he's staring at her, and even just the way that he's looking at her pins her so much physically. You know, he definitely has this presence that she knows he's powerful,
and that
he's
penetrating
daunting.
vibe.
Yes. And yet she can give a little sass. Only the green ones. You know what I mean? Like she's just.
Did you try ratsbane?
Yeah. Like, what are we doing? So I was very proud of Joan.
The rats didn't all die. Oh yeah, did you try any ratsbane?
Yeah.
He was like, no, what the hell he's talking about? He's like, okay, what are you talking about, dude? You're talking about
You've
frogs
got the
and
wrong
rats.
person. Yeah. Like, when are you gonna figure this out?
Yeah, give me a cow. I'll tell you what the damn do about it. You know?
Yes, I'll tell you what things to pick for a cow. Can't tell anything about rats.
I can milk and teat with the best of them, but don't ask me about frogs and rats.
Yes. Thank you.
Why do you think he asked her if she knows the frog rather than do you know Monsieur Raymond? You know, like what, like you know, it kind of was funny that he said frog.
I took it as
she would know by that name. Probably she would know him as his regular name if she knew him.
If she knew him, yeah. I took it almost that he's just like so
out of his
ravenous and like not in his right mind, of his right calculated mind. Like this was someone who he wasn't expecting. Exactly. It wasn't part of his plan, and now she's suddenly here and he's finding out, you know, these random facts about her. So that's what it is. I think it's a frustrated but also flustered mind.
He was expecting to see blue glow. There's no blue glow.
Yes.
He's not what she expected.
This is not,
she's not what he expected, I mean.
No.
What does he mean to gain by telling her that not all the rats died? He really seems very out of sorts. You know, like, what does he want her to say, you know?
Exactly.
Well, not all the rats died.
You've got the wrong person, buddy. Like, I don't know what that means. Yeah. So, you know, I think he's just throwing darts. Like, maybe something I'm going to say is going to stick to her and she'll either give me a reaction so I know I've got someone who knows what I'm talking about, or, you know, she'll come clean about it. So that's how I feel. I feel like he's just pulling straws.
Beyond frustrated. Yeah.
Yes.
Why did he tell her that he was a sorcerer when he locked her in, do you think? Just to make sure she didn't touch stuff? Just
to scare her. I think especially because he was thinking, okay, there's no blue light. She doesn't know what I'm talking about. Maybe she is just some scared little Highland girl who I can kind of fool so that she won't touch things. And she, you know, because she obviously looks scared.
There is a lot of crap in that room. It's his laboratory.
That she could mess with. Exactly. Yeah. He doesn't want her being a toddler, knocking it all over.
And maybe also trying to intimidate her. Do you think he plans to bet her at this point?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't yet. I think he's disappointed. I think it's like when you buy something online and then you get it and you're like, that was not what was pictured. You know?
No,
There's no return policy. You know, you buy it from overseas and you're like, oh man.
So Joan is now both scared and angry. Her common sense tells her this is all because she spoke to this man in the marketplace and told him not to do it. Now she opened her big damn mouth, and now he freaking, like, she piqued his curiosity, and look what the mess now she's in. You know, she's beating herself up. and you know, she wants to know what his story is. So I'm gonna just play the rest of this little bit of scene. Oh, I keep doing that. I'm so used to doing it with my finger with the phone.
Oh, yeah.
And then he'd lugged her up here, told her briefly that she wouldn't be hurt, added the bit about being a sorcerer in a very offhand sort of a way, and locked her in. She was terrified, and indignant too. But now that she'd calmed down a wee bit, she thought she wasn't really afraid of him. And that seemed odd. Surely she should be. But she'd believed him when he said he meant her no harm. He hadn't threatened her or tried to frighten her.
I was supposed to
But
start
if
annoying.
that was true,
Okay.
what did he want of her? He likely wants to know what you meant by rushing up to him.
Sorry, hold on.
And tell.
It's okay.
She got up again and explored the room, thinking. She couldn't tell him any more than she had, though. That was the thing. Would he believe her about the voices? Even so, he tried to find out more, and there wasn't any more to find out. What then? Don't wait about to see, advised her common sense. Having already come to this conclusion, she didn't bother replying. She'd found a heavy marble mortar and pestle. That might do. Wrapping the mortar in her apron, she went to the window that overlooked the street. She'd break the glass, then shriek till she got someone's attention. Even so high up, she thought, someone would hear. Pity it was a quiet street, but she stiffened like a bird dog. A coach was stopped outside one of the houses opposite, and Michael Murray was getting out of it. He was just putting on his hat, no mistaking that flaming red hair. Michael, she shouted at the top of her lungs. But he didn't look up. The sound wouldn't pierce glass. She swung the cloth-wrapped mortar at the window, but it bounced off the bars with a ringing clang. She took a deep breath and a better aim. This time she hit one of the panes and cracked it. Encouraged, she tried again with all the strength of muscular arms and shoulders, and was rewarded with a small crash, a shower of glass, and a rush of mud-scented air from the river. Michael! But he had disappeared. A servant's face showed briefly in the open door of the house opposite, then vanished as the door closed. Through a red haze of frustration, she noticed the swag of black crepe hanging from the knob. Who was dead?
So I love Joan's resourcefulness. Once she gets her like head together a little and her bravery, and she thinks that the furniture might come to life, but still has the guts to try to break the window, you know, which I love. And she's like this 18th century woman with the spirit of a 20th century woman. Like, I'm going to get myself out of here. Like Mother Claire, get a little Mother Claire moment. So your thoughts, Mary, on Joan, her reaction to seeing Michael, her heart lifted seeing him. Were you surprised that he ended up being right across the street? Because at this point, we don't know, like, where the heck is he going? Like, what is this, you know?
Exactly.
Who's dead? Like, we don't know that yet either.
Yeah. This is why it was not good. Like, they're right there. They're so close, and she's trying everything she possibly can to get his attention. You know, we find out later why he's right across the street, but still, it's just, they're so close, and you're sitting there as a reader saying, oh my gosh, turn around, look up, you know?
Yeah. Do you see any similarities between Joan and Marsley as sisters?
That is a good...
She struck me like that in this particular scene because you see her being so, you know, like taking charge, trying to break the window. Yeah, you know, courageous.
Yes, I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Like you could tell they're sisters. They were both raised to kind of like buck up under circumstances.
Yes, exactly.
And now she was basically all her mother had for a while, you know what I mean, after Marsley left.
Yeah.
So it turns out that he is at Chucky's house. Yeah. And he wants to ask where the hell the comp lives. You know, where the hell is this comp, you know, that you were selling my poor Joan to, you know? And were you surprised that they lived across the street from each other? Do you think they had a more involved connection than just meeting each other at this gaming house, that they knew each other more than that if they lived across the street and the wife knew he lived across the street?
Yeah, it didn't come off that way to me in their previous interaction.
No, it didn't.
So, I mean, maybe it's because the comp's not frequently there. You know what I mean? You know how he just kind of comes and goes and stuff. So I don't know if a lot of his, because he tries not to be seen a lot, you know, if you think about it, he doesn't want people to recognize him too awfully much. So maybe he does come and go outside of his house a lot of the time during nighttime hours or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think he recognized them and knew him on sight when he saw him and then realized he knew Michael.
Yes.
So I think there was that, but I don't get the impression they're good friends. But I think they must have known each other, living across the street, seeing each other come and go a
they
little
don't
bit.
like go to each other's house asking for a cup of sugar or extra eggs. Yeah.
So it's a very disturbing scene. Chucky's dead, slit his own throat. His wife is ruined. He's gambled away everything they owned, including the house that she brought to the marriage, left her and her children in dire straits. And Michael gets a taste of what Joan has been dealing with. This is one of the things I liked about this scene. He keeps hearing Joan's voice saying, "Tell him not to do it." And the wife takes him to see Chucky. He's dressed in sober blue suit, nothing like he'd normally wear. And it looks weird to him to see Chucky look like that. And Michael is washed with his own grief and guilt that he didn't act sooner, that he didn't come as soon as she said something. Maybe he could have stopped this. And this is exactly the thing that he's kind of connecting. This is what she's been coping with. This is what she's had to cope with every time she hears this voice. Because now I'm feeling it. Like I could have come here yesterday.
Could have done something.
And maybe I would have stopped this, that I acted sooner, So I really love that kind of how he gets a window into her
into that
stress
guilt,
of
that
dealing with it.
self-guilt too, of like maybe I coulda, woulda, shoulda, and really, we can't be in charge of everybody else's lives.
No. So here's our last clip, and then we'll wrap ourselves up here. Let's see. Hold on. Let's get our last clip up. Wife is pissed. Wife is like beyond pissed. Yeah.
Michael thought that it was probably the only thing he'd owned that was in any way appropriate in which to appear dead. Sadly, he missed his friend's frivolity with a surge that brought unexpected tears to his eyes. Tell him not to do it. He hadn't come in time. If I'd come right away when she told me, would it have stopped him? He could smell the blood, a rusty, sickly smell that seeped through the freshness of the flowers and leaves. The undertaker had tied a white neckcloth for Charles. He'd used an old-fashioned knot, nothing that Charles himself would have worn for a moment. The black stitches showed above it, though, the wound harsh against the dead man's livid skin. His own shot was beginning to fray, and stabs of guilt and anger poked through it like needles. Coward, he said softly. He didn't mean it as a question, but it seemed more courteous to say it that way. Eulalie snorted, and looking up, Michael met the full charge of her eyes. No, not shocked any longer. You'd know, wouldn't you? She said, and it wasn't at all a question the way she said it. You knew about your slut of a sister-in-law, didn't you? And Babette. Her lips curled away from the name. His other mistress? I know, I mean, they only told me yesterday.
Got around.
That was why I came to talk to Charles. Well, he would certainly have mentioned Leila. And he wasn't going anywhere near the mention of Babette, whom he'd known about for quite some time. But Jesus, what did the woman think he could have done about it? Coward, she said, looking down at Charles' body with contempt. He made a mess of everything. Everything. And then couldn't deal with it. So he runs off and leaves me alone with children, penniless. Tell him not to do it. Michael looked to see if this was an exaggeration, but it wasn't. She was burning now, but with fear as much as anger. Her frozen calm quite vanished. The house, he began, with a rather vague wave around the expensive, stylish room. He knew it was her family house. She'd brought it to the marriage. She snorted. He lost it in a card game last week, she said bitterly. If I'm lucky, the new owner will let me bury him before we have to leave. The mention of card games jolted him back to an awareness of his reason for coming here. I wonder, madame, do you know an acquaintance of Charles, the Count Saint-Germain? It
My
would
neighbor.
prove, but he hadn't time to think of a graceful way to come to it. Eugenie blinked, nonplussed. The Count? Why do you want to know about him? Her expression sharpened into eagerness. Do you think he owes Charles money? I don't know, but I'll certainly find out for you, Michael promised her. If you can tell me where to find Monsieur Count. She didn't laugh, but her mouth quirked in what might, in another mood, have been humour. He lives across the street. She pointed toward the window. In that big pile of... Where are you going? But Michael was already through the door and into the hallway, boot heels clattering on the parquet in his haste.
So, were you surprised that Charles had committed suicide? We're going to wrap up now, but I'm
Yeah,
just
I
giving you
didn't
a
really,
couple
but
questions.
to me, I almost thought of it that like the comp like faked his suicide. You know what I mean? Because to me, I'm like, why would Charles have committed suicide? Because once again, he's the guy. He's not going to have to deal with the repercussions of Leonie, having this baby. I mean, he could just.
But I think he totally failed his family too. He lost everything for his family.
Yeah, yeah. So
I
is
think.
it because of the gambling that he committed suicide? Because the
I,
way that I read it was that all this stuff's going down and things aren't looking up for the comp anyway, for Chucky anyway. And to me, I was suspicious that maybe he was like faux murdered. But once again, this is because I probably watch way too many Netflix documentaries and like, oh, it's the comp and he's making it look like he committed suicide. So that way no one will know
okay.
that he took Joan. Like, because he was the one that told him about Joan, I'm just getting like too reporter, into this,
Right.
I
Yeah.
think.
I mean, I think it was very cowardly, but he just struck me like a coward. And I think he
Yeah.
had taken a very dark path. He had affairs. He was gambling,
Yeah.
but he lost everything, and he couldn't
Mm-hmm.
face it. He couldn't face his family and say, I lost everything. And, then deal with the repercussions of it. And now he had Leonie with being
Yeah.
pregnant, and all the other stuff. What are your thoughts on Michael's feelings of guilt here? That he didn't come sooner, a day sooner.
Gosh, I can't even fathom that kind of guilt. I feel guilty with like not calling somebody back when I say I'm going to. I can't even
Yeah,
imagine the level of guilt and how Michael must be feeling at this moment while he's balancing the panic of trying to figure out where Joan is.
right.
I can't even fathom it.
It's such a pity that he left his family like this. Um, well, I said, what a shock for Michael. How awful for him to be wondering whether he could have prevented this, But it
Mm-hmm.
seems like Charles was a very weak character, and
Yes.
I think when he lost his wife's property, like he couldn't face it,
Yeah.
and now having to face Leonie's pregnancy, it was just too much, I guess, for him.
Well, now I'm going to view
Any
this in a very different light. I'm going to stop blaming the comp for everything. And just
any
take it totally
predictions
that he's
on
a
how this
coward.
ends, Mary? What are your final thoughts before we skedaddle?
Oh my gosh, I just, I'm ready. I'm ready for this last fifth and final
Any
part.
final predictions? Hot take,
Oh,
whatever the heck you want to call it, for how this is
Michael's
going to
going to
roll?
come in and save the day, and the comp is just going to poof away. Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen because it's so little is left, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of pieces to still tie up. So
Yeah,
I,
it
I
does leave
really
you a
don't
lot
know.
of open questions and stuff at the end. I'm going to give you a warning. Like, you do have some things that are left because some of it, like Diana said in the beginning, like their story is an arc in the
Mm-hmm.
book, but then the other stuff is more like color for the rest of the series itself. Like the
Mm-hmm.
stuff between the Compton, Raymond, and all of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
stuff with Joan and Michael are like more the story for this book. You know what I mean? So it has
Yes.
like two parts. But it is kind of like, but I did left a little bit because I am going to do a little intro on Leaf on the Wind of All Hollows, and we'll kind of talk about the repercussions of this. So that's why it's a shorter bit next time.
Okay.
So we can kind of give some final thoughts. So you just think he's going to come in and save the day,
That's what I'm
rescue
hoping.
her out of this house.
That's what I'm hoping.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay, but let's be real.
Interesting.
I think that it's gonna be Joan. I think Joan's voices are gonna be like, do this, do that, bada bing, bada boom,
Hmm.
whatever. As much as I want Michael to go in and save the day, but actually Joan is like some crazy sorceress with the voices.
Okay, so if you we're wrapping this up, if you can stay, um, please do, and I will be on about 5 minutes with the after buzz, which will be like a little casual chat with everybody. And let me get my little thing going here. Uh, Low. I want to pick, it was really loud last time, so I want to keep it low.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, lots of cool stuff this time on next time. I mean, that's going to be coming, and our next movie, Beehive Alive, will be this Saturday at 3. Covers chapters 14 and 18. Mary.
Yay. Okay, please be sure to join us here next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to cover the fifth part, wrap the rest of this story. and intro. The next one, of course. Check the event tomorrow for the addendum page for that reading. Thank you so much for coming. Bye, everybody.
I will
Bye,
check the
Angela.
board for the comments after as well. Okay, much love. See you in a few minutes. Bye.